Welcome to the Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Nick Tasso, taking a look at some Tuesday pitchers. A lot of good names on this slate. It's a pretty friendly pitching slate, which obviously, as expected, coming up Mondays, which was pretty average. So definitely a lot of options you can go with tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's tough to really nail down our top five. I know we had a few guys that we talked about that didn't make the list, but I guess we can get right down to them.
Yeah, we'll talk about Max Scherzer here first, your highest priced arm on the slate. He isn't a must play for me on this one. I mean, I do like him a lot. Dodgers lineup isn't quite the same as last year. They're striking out at a quite higher rate, 23.2% against righties, but still 11th in WOBA, 19th in ISO. Still some dangerous lefties. But Scherzer, I think, in terms of safety, is still one of the top options.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost every time Scherzer's out there, you kind of, if you want a safe play, just kind of throw him in there. And he typically doesn't have one of those blowout games. Sure, he can, but you typically don't get that. And I know you said the Dodgers lineup's filled with lefties. He has a 307 WOBA against lefties, only compared to 195 against righties. So there's a little bit of concern there, but I really don't mind Scherzer here. I like him. He's also my top guy for safety wise. And like you said, this Dodgers team, even though they do have a bunch of lefties, they're really not the same as they once were.
No, definitely not. I think, with the strikeout rate, you get some platoon guys in there. You get some, if they toss in, um, like Chris Taylor again, we've seen some kind of wacky lineups over the last few games. It could really play to a Scherzer's advantage. And as you said, the 307 WOBA, I mean, it's mainly been due to the home runs. He's allowed a couple home runs to lefties this year, which has inflated that number. But I'm not too worried here.
Yeah, and it's not like 307 WOBA is that bad, actually. It's just because it's Max Scherzer and his WOBA against righties is under 200. So that's why it kind of stands out. But overall, they're pretty normal numbers against lefties and 6 home runs.
Yep. Yeah, and you look, I mean, 5 double-digit strikeout starts on the season, and has been above 7 all but once. I mean, those strikeouts are going to carry even if he gives up a home run or two.
Absolutely, that's the one good thing about Scherzer is that strikeout percentage is almost always there, depending on what he does, what else he does on the mound. So you have to like him.
Robbie Ray, a guy you and I are both on, heading back home, going up against a Padres team that struggles against lefties. Dead last in WOBA, 22.7% strikeout rate. I like Ray here. I don't think he's a cash game guy for me, but I definitely will use him in some GPPs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a little bit too expensive for me for cash games, but GPPs, I definitely mind him. It's hard to ignore. 3 straight games, 0 runs allowed. And he does have a little bit of a strikeout uh, potential. So I don't mind him here. And like you said, Padres just not really that great of an offense.
Yeah, and I think, if this game was in Petco, I'd be okay with him for cash, but his home road numbers are a bit enhanced. I mean, Chase Field obviously has played the extreme. 384 WOBA allowed at home compared to 184 on the road. Strikeout rate also jumped 7% on the road. So we've seen a little bit of a difference. I mean, he's always given the high hard contact rate, but outside of Will Myers, there just really isn't a lot of right-handed power for San Diego.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, you're throwing Ray in there, and there's a lot of upside, but I think there might be some people who kind of shy away from him because of his splits at home. So that might benefit his percentage owned as well.
Yep. I'm looking up James Paxton, third of the guy that we're both on. I mean, obviously looked stellar last time out, come off the DL. In Minnesota, they haven't really been quite the same against lefties. I mean, they haven't really worked a ton of platoon bats in there for right-handers, where you still keep seeing Joe Mauer from time to time, Max Kepler. So it kind of helps out. And given that Paxton's been just excellent this year, I love the fact that the price hasn't really adjusted to where he was before the DL stint.
At PAX, I know it hasn't been a huge sample size, but he was a 0.35 ERA at home and only 260 on the road. So it's not that bad, and I really don't mind him here. So I kind of would just throw him in and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think SP2 wise, I'll be having a fair amount of shares of him. 30.2% strikeout rate, has yet to allow a home run. Decent job of keeping the ball on the ground, 45%. So, as you said, he's been solid at home. Minnesota low run total, home favorite. He just kind of grades out as a solid option.
Yeah, I kind of agree. He's good for cash games because his price has been pretty low. I think a lot of people will be on him for those reasons. As you mentioned earlier, Minnesota has been a little bit underwhelming against lefties this year. I think they have too many lefties now in their lineup, which I think Paxton can definitely neutralize. So I think he's completely safe for a cash game here.
Yep. And you were looking at Kevin Gossman. This is a guy that missed my top five tonight. In terms of a cheap guy, I don't mind him as an SP2.
Yeah, he's strictly a GPP play for me. I don't expect a whole bunch from him, but I think he should have a good outing. He has a good matchup against Pittsburgh, which even though this is a good ballpark for hitters, I guess Gossman still can kind of get up there and have a good success. In the past, he's struggled allowing home runs, especially at that stadium. But I think he can tone it down. My concern is that over the last four shown that strikeout percentage that we've been hoping for and that he showed last year and the year before. So I still think it's there, especially against this Pirates team that could definitely struggle. He might be able to get back on track. So that's why I like him for GPP play, SP2.
Yeah, and looking at his recent stretch, I mean, he hasn't had a good matchup in quite some time. I mean, New York, Houston, Toronto, Kansas City, Washington, Boston, New York, Boston, Cincinnati, Toronto, New York, Toronto. I mean, he's not playing cupcake teams right now, and he's allowing a ton of base runners, and I think Pittsburgh's a spot where he definitely can rebound a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know that Pittsburgh's had struggled this year, especially at PNC. So I mean, they do get a little boost being away from Pittsburgh, but I still think Gausman comes in. I think he might get underowned too. But yeah, I feel like this is the game where his strikeouts get back on board.
Yep, I'm definitely with you there. Chris Archer's a guy. I think he's my favorite arm on the slate tonight. Just at quite a bit of a discount from Scherzer. I mean, Scherzer's 13K, Archer's 10.6. Archer at home. I mean, he's been phenomenal. He's always been that way in the past. I mean, 261 WOBA, 35.2% strikeout rate. The walk rate also drops 5%. So Tropicana definitely helps out Archer. And you're just looking at the Chicago team. Good against lefties, not so good against righties. 23rd in ISO, 28th in WOBA, 23% strikeout rate. For me, I mean, Archer, I think just points per dollar wise, given that he does have that discount, but also the strikeout upside, he really comes in as my number one, just price considered.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to not go with Archer. He just missed my top five because he sometimes has those games where he can struggle. But I agree with you. It is a good matchup and it's a good ballpark, so things should work out for him. I'm just a little concerned about his ownership rate, so it's probably why I'd stay a little away from him.
Jaime Garcia, how's your fifth guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's not the best, but at his price, I really don't mind him. Looking at this Philadelphia team, they got stymied the other day by another lefty from San Francisco. I know the ballpark is a little bit friendlier for San Francisco, but I think Garcia has been pitching well. He's a little bit better at home in Atlanta than he has on the road, and he still has the potential for strikeouts. He's a guy in years past who would just never give up home runs at all, and then we kind of saw him struggle at the end of last year, and then now the beginning of this year, and it looks like over his last 5, 6, 7 outings that he's put it all together, and I think he's priced nicely to kind of throw in as an SP2.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking to get those big bats, I'm definitely okay with Garcia. That ground ball rate's back up to an elite level, and I think that's the one thing that always stood out to me when he was struggling. You know, he wasn't rolling a ton of ground balls as he was before.
Yeah, and it's always his strikeouts. They always come and go. So I mean, it's hard to see how many he's going to have in any given night. But he usually gets a handful or so. I know last start he didn't get any. I mean, he only got two, so he didn't get too many. But he didn't give up any runs. That was in a good ballpark, and I think Atlanta will benefit him here.
Yep, definitely don't mind him. Marco Estrada's my fifth guy. Yankees, I mean, absolutely shellacked him last time out. It was on a smaller slate where you might have had some shares. I don't mind him. I mean, the strikeout rate has been there this year, 27.2%. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. Oakland's offense, I mean, there's certainly boomer bust. 207 ISO against right-handed pitching. That ranks first in the league. But they do have a 24.4% strikeout rate. And in Oakland at night, that should help out Estrada, who does have that low ground ball rate. So Vegas isn't expecting a ton. I'm not either, and I think a lot of people are going to be off of Estrada, and I think he's a good GPP pivot away from guys like Paxton.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't mind Estrada at all. I do have recency bias because I'm one of those people who played him in that small slate, and it was not fun. Night was pretty much over at the beginning of the day, so but I definitely agree. Going back to him is still a good play here.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I think that's how a lot of people feel. So I'm hoping that keeps the ownership down. Um, as far as anyone else, I mean, I didn't see. I think those are pretty much the guys that I've narrowed down to. And as you said, you gave us some cheap SP2s to really work with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could kind of pick some spots here or there, maybe even like a Daniel Norris going up against the Angels offense, but they sometimes can come alive. Most days they don't. So I wouldn't mind throwing Norris in. But yeah, I think for me, it'd be a wait and see kind of lineup kind of thing. I definitely would recommend staying away from Matt Cain, though. He's been atrocious on the road this year, and I don't think Miller Park would help him at all.
No, I'm definitely with you. I like Milwaukee, even though that lineup's a little bit banged up right now. Kane's definitely not a guy to use.
Yeah, absolutely not. What are your thoughts about DeGrom in Texas?
Yeah, DeGrom's a guy we glossed over. And I think because the Archer price tag's right pretty close and he's at home, I definitely don't mind DeGrom. He's another guy I was kind of bummed about over his last few starts or his last start. Um, I don't know if he's going to crack my lineups at all. I think there's just too many other options.
Yeah, I don't mind DeGrom either. I feel like there's just too many variables against this Rangers team. They hit obviously, and I don't know, DeGrom, like you said, hasn't really looked the greatest lately. So he might find a couple of GPPs, but he's clearly not safe at all for cash.
Yeah, definitely a good point to bring him up because I feel like that's how a lot of people are going to be. I mean, we glossed over him, didn't really talk about him, and I think that's how many are going to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And even maybe Tanaka, sometimes that Red Sox offense isn't the greatest either.
No, they've definitely gone quiet most nights than not over the late.
Yeah, but Tanaka also hasn't been that great, so we'll see.
Yeah. So, that's going to wrap things up here. You can head to NordDaveFantasyCafe.com, check out our great tools and content.